We start off with a little dive just into how this beingness is expressing, is alive in each of us. Is it alive in you? How is this beingness, this self? What's flavor is most prominent? A stillness, a peace, a love, a connectedness, a care, a tenderness, a flow, an ease. What's your most prominent flavor of what some people call our essential nature, our true nature, our self? Let's just take a moment in silence to let ourselves sink into that, to fall into that, to be that. And as we do that, see if there can just be a loving indifference towards the parts, the arisings, the sinking into this, being this. I'd like to know this, to feel this, to be this. We're so used to being the weather, the thoughts, the parts. I'd like to be this self, this presence, this awareness. How do you know self is here? Do you know it? Something different in your body? Is there more relaxation, more peace, more stillness? Or is there more aliveness, more presence, more sense of now? How do you know it's here? How do you know it somatically? And then that's our first view in effortless IFS, this discernment and just resting as self. Let's go from here to the second view. From this resting here, from this spaciousness, from this infinite hot tub, this warmth, this welcoming that we are. What are the parts? What's the weather? What are the thoughts that arise in your system? What are the loudest parts right here, right now? Loudest arising in your system? Is it, oh, how much longer are we going to do this? Or like Sid's, like, yay, look at all of our friends who are here today. This is so fun. Or, gosh, I'm really hoping I'm going to get some relief from something today. What's the loudest part? Or it's like, God, I wish I had coffee like Sarah, where I could be having some coffee right now too. What's the loudest voice in your system? And as you notice that, can it just be welcomed by this self, by this beingness, included, accepted, whatever your image is, if it's an infinite hot tub, if it's the roomie's guest house, and these guests, these exquisite guests, these thoughts, feelings, and sensations, these parts are just welcomed. This this loudest part in your system, is it able to experience this welcoming of self, this warmth of the hot tub, this love that you are? And feel that. And then let's expand a little bit. What's the next loudest part that's in your system? Like, oh gosh, how much longer is it going to talk? Or maybe I'm not doing this right. Thought, what's the next loudest thought? What am I going to say today? And where do you find it? Is it like a contraction? Is it in your chest, in your head? Where do you hear this voice? You find a location for it, as well as the location of that first one. And you be aware of both of them. You be aware of both of these arisings. It gets a little tricky sometimes because the mind wants to focus on one at a time. Can we be the space? Can we zoom out from this awareness? Can we be aware of both of these parts? And if you're having difficulties with that, we used to do this every time. You're having difficulties being aware of two parts. I do this little game of like being aware of two thumbs and letting the thumbs open as I'm aware of, as there's awareness of them. And that opens up the space to awareness. And as we're aware of these two, be your two thumbs from this spaciousness, from this openness, in you as self, you as the hot tub, you as this awareness, can there just be a welcoming of these two arisings or all of what arises here? You just be welcomed. And what's the flavor again? What's welcoming it? What's that flavor in you right now of self? Is it presence and aliveness, a love, care, a connectedness, a tenderness? What is it? What's the flavor that's here of your hot tub? And let's just rest here for a moment in silence. And we're going to take it a little further to what we call the third view. Sometimes we call this Rumi's field. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And for this one, as you're aware of your parts from this beingness, from self, aware of the parts, is it possible that the parts are just wearing masks? Like kids playing, wearing masks, wearing masks as the I want, I need, I don't want, I prefer. Could those just be masks? And beneath the masks is the innocence, the light, this beingness, this love. Almost like the child takes off the mask and there's just light and love there. Can that be glimpsed in your system? That even these exquisite parts of yours are of this self. Ultimately, they are of this. Those are our three views, and we're going to push it just a little bit further as we close today. There's this sense of on our screen that there are little lines between us, like we each have a box with lines dividing us. But are we really divided? Are we really separate here? This self that you've been exploring in your system, is it really yourself, or is it more self, beingness? And is the peace that's here in Sid, is it any different than the peace that's in David and the peace that's in Nora and Elizabeth? Or is it one, is it like a shared beingness amongst us all? This peace, this stillness, this love, this connectedness. Is it possible that it's shared? And then these parts, the Sid has a do it right part, and the Sid has a critic part. Is that really, is it really different than your parts? Or are they just all kind of parts that are arising, beautiful expressions that are arising that we're calling Sid's and Nora's and Elizabeth's? Could all of our parts be welcomed by self? Could the hot tub include us all? Is your hot tub limited to your square, or does it also include Sarah's parts and V's parts and Kai's parts? Can they all be welcomed here? When you're ready, it's like we'll gently return, being with the nine of us who are here with you. But as we return, you still notice the beingness that's here, the self that is here. And as we return, let's just kind of, we can shake this off now. That was, gosh, Sid, we just came together. We didn't get to even say anything, and we just dove into all of this. Please, come on. Where's the fun? This is supposed to be enjoyable. We're playing together. You just shake it off because there's nothing that you need to hold on to in what we just did. That was, we were just playing, like we're out, done with school. We're out in the backyard playing with our friends. We're exploring, we're celebrating you. We're celebrating, we're curious about how life is moving, and you nothing needs to hold on to. We're just here and now together. And that just as you're shaking, I'm going to do my quick housekeeping. That, as you guys all know, I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm a mediator, and for me, this isn't the psychotherapy of IFS. We're friends and colleagues exploring together. Everybody's good, being responsible for their journeys today. If I can get a thumbs up from you, please. And then lastly, I've got the little record, Nora, yay. And I've got the recording on, but only my image is ever shared. However, your audio could be shared because I make this available often for people who aren't coming. But if there's any discomfort on that, you can just tell me anytime. I make you a co-host and you get you a pause on the recording when you speak. And that's preferable. Or if you say something, you're like, gosh, I wish I hadn't said that. No problem. Just stay on at the very end and just let me know, Sid, I wish I hadn't said that. And I magically delete it. Everybody's good that this might be shared. Can I get a thumbs up, please? Oh, yay. So, who wants to start? What's this like? What was it like going through those views, that little guided thing? Or what's going on with you? What's happening today? What brings you here? What's exciting? Or what's a pain in the butt in your world right now? What's happening? Who wants to go first? Raymond!
So I'll jump in, Sid. Literally. You asked the question during that meditation, how do you know the self's here, or how do you sense into the self? And again, I thought about the word faith. And there's a scripture that says, what is faith? It's being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you can't see. And that certainty of what you can't see, because the mind can't see the self, of course, because we're looking out from the self. And how I know the self's here is that I wouldn't be here if self wasn't here. So, and I know that psychologically and emotionally and egotistically, as you say, there are parts. But I experienced as a group here, and I think it's Ramana Maharshi that talks about my ego's like a salt doll, and this is like the ocean. And as soon as I hit the ocean, my salt doll dissolves. And so two things there. One is you can't even breathe without the self. And my experience of it, and it's not anything I'm doing. I don't do this. I've never done it. And when it gets done, you know it's not you that's doing it, because the one that was seeking it and doing it, that's the one that evaporates. I'll leave it there. Said there's probably quite a wee bit in that.
Did everybody find a wee bit in that? What was that? I'm teasing Raymond. We don't use that. I love that expression. I love it so much. What was the wee bit in that for each of us, really? As Raymond speaks about, he uses the word faith for this knowing that self is here, that this beingness is here. What about for you? When I asked that question, or when Raymond was speaking about it, what's that version of that for you? In Effortless IFS, we call it a tipping point that opens on this journey. And it's a really big deal when the system starts to really know that self is always here, that this beingness is here. And for Raymond, it's just as he describes it, of course it's here. If it wasn't here, how could I be here? How could any of this be here? But for most of us on this journey, it's a gradual thing, and it's almost like the parts start recognizing that self is here. And some of our parts are like, of course, we're just like Raymond. Of course, I know this is here. Of course. But we have other parts, especially ones that have been wounded and have a difficult time. Those that like, I don't know about that. Or like, where's self? I can't feel. All I'm feeling is contraction, tension, and pain right now. So for each of us, do you know that self is here? Is it always here? Sometimes we use this metaphor of the weather in the sky, the sense that it's always here by the sky, but the weather sometimes obscures it. Does your system know that it's always here? And then which of our parts, and I got lots of parts that don't believe this, which of your parts kind of don't get it yet, that self is here, that there is this love, this presence, this they call it causeless okayness that's here. Which of your parts don't get that? And is it okay? Is that okay? Can that be welcomed? Can we see the innocence of that? Can those parts be included just as they are? Well, before we go to who wants to go next, anything bubbling for anybody with what Raymond just shared and with the being with the self in that way? Anything bubbling that would like to be shared in response? And just before we go to who's next, let me just ask us all, how are you then? How are you? How are you? Like, what's loudest here? How are you? What parts are loudest? Like, it might be an understanding part. Wow, can I really understand like, do I really get what Raymond was sharing? Like, what's that like for me? It might be a critic part. Oh, something should be different here. Or a perfectionist, an achiever. It might be a bored part. Or that would be the foreground. Like, how are you? Or it might be self. Like, hey, man, I'm okay. I'm peaceful. I'm love. I'm just joy here. How are you? All right, who wants to go next? Sarah, David.
So I was sitting here for a while before the meeting start, and in hindsight, from my current perspective, I was not, in fact, I felt connected, okay? Or I didn't notice that I was not connected. I don't know hard to express this. Anyway, but then when this room started to fill up with my colleagues, an image came up and I started to play with the image and it was kind of funny and I was enjoying it. And it was like an expedition setting off from base camp to climb Mount Everest. And we were kind of all roped together. And it was the teamwork sense of being a group of people that it's like this is a rare thing in my world anyway, to have people that have these kinds of interests to take the time and just kind of fully be here. So I was feeling that gratitude that was remarked on before about that. And so I was just kind of enjoying that.
What's it like? What's it like that connectedness, idea of being roped together, which I mean I'm hearing support there in this venture to climb this mountain, at the support of the beingness, the self, the love, the essence of everyone, and also our parts, right? Are the like, aren't we all excited? Like, what's going to show up today? What part are we going to hear? What is David going to reveal for us? That's going to be it's just a gift as we go on this journey together. What's Sarah's parent? My friend Sarah's got like so many parts. Which part of her is are we going to meet today and get to find in our own system? Like, what's it like? What's it like not to be alone? We all have parts that feel alone, right? That feel separate. And then what about this not being separate that David's mentioning? What's that like, David?
I don't even remember what the question was, but there was a question that uh, arose that caused or seemed to cause, who knows about cause and effect, seemed to produce an inward directed view of emptiness. It's like there's there's nothing that is seen or sensed outwards that for which there's not capacity inwards, because there was like I felt it flowing into the nothingness of or emptiness of self. What else to call it? I loved Raymond's comment about he's got this logical thing that he brings to bear on some of these questions about like, well, kind of like, well, how could I be here if I'm not here? I'm here. It's like, okay, that's pretty obvious.
Let me ask everybody a question, David, with where you are right now. When David speaks of the emptiness of self, how does that translate for your system? What does that mean for you? Emptiness. What's most like emptiness that's here now in your system? And you might have a different word for it. It might be spaciousness, it might be presence, it might be stillness. What's your experience of that? Because you know the Buddhists speak about this in the Heart Sutra. They get to this beautiful line: the form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And if you have a part that comes up, it's like, what the hell are they talking about? It's like perfect. We love that part. We love that part. It just gets to be so enjoyed. Or a part that's trying to understand. And at the same time, my question is, as we hear David speak of emptiness, we're interested in only your experience. There's no place we're going here. What's your experience of emptiness? And we heard for David, it was a gift. It was like everything that was experienced out there, that there was somehow the emptiness was helpful. David, any other piece you want to throw into this in your experience?
I really enjoy and appreciate the opportunity to be here fully engaged and not feel, as you suggested, was not necessary. Didn't have to feel attached to anything that I had thought of before. I could just be right here, right now, and that was a-okay. Because I did notice that there was a self that experienced the emptiness as, uh-oh, what am I going to say? There's there's no what ooh, if I turn back towards the self, it's like, oh, I'm kind of anxious because if I get called on or if I raise my hand, uh there won't be anything to refer to speak to. Okay. Uh, so it just, it came through and it went out the back door, so that was great.
What about that for all of us? With David speaking of a part, it's like, uh-oh, I'm not gonna know what I'm gonna say or what I'm going to do. And then he used that word, but then there's something that's a-okay. just here now. Let's just take a moment with that. What's it like to be here? Not there, here. And where is here? Where is here? Just being here. And is that enough just to be here? Is it enough? And what's it like? What's the experience of here, being here? Is there a flavor of it? We speak of self having these different flavors. Is it stillness? Is it love? What's it like just here, here-ness? And then David uses for just here and now. What about now? Now, not then, because notice parts in the mind want to go to future and past. And in a way, now isn't even playing in the timeline. There's just a sense of now. Like, when are you? Like, it's now. What time is it? Now. What's it like to be now? Janet, you made me laugh. And now, now, and what's the experience? Is it can you find it's like an aliveness in that, a presence? And is that enough? Is now enough? And notice parts that want to come up and want more. Is now enough? David, any final words?
Yeah, that was really great, that little trip. Because like this the words bring up stuff that's so contradictory. Like this is probably inconsistent with what I said before, but there was just your direction of here and now. It's like I can't I can't nail it down. Whenever I look for that, there's just flow and movement and change. It's like a fire hose of experience, uh, which actually felt really good.
Mm,
You know, can't can't nail it down, kind of thing.
thank you. Yes. And then, and then can we all find a part that's like, I'm really not sure what David's talking about with this here and now, or I'm not sure if I really fully get what he's saying, or where this little game Sid play with like here, not there. Do we have parts that are like working on that? And can those just be so welcomed? Especially if there's a part that might be like, oh, I'm not doing it right. There's something I need to get. I need to get this here and now deeper. Can we just love the part that's doing that? And then here we are, here and now. Nothing to get, nothing to understand. Anything bubbling before we go to who wants to go next? Anything bubbling in response to Dave's sharing? Sarah, just because you leave sometimes early, and I don't want anybody to miss our friend Sarah, would you be willing to share what's happening for you?
Hi everyone. Yeah, thank you, Sid. Um, well, I've been working with my codependent part, um, and um, well, this part is conflicting a little bit with another part of me, um, a part that doesn't want to see the boundaries between people, like just looking at this screen and just seeing these squares and just feeling connected to everyone, the part that wants connection and the part that wants um, not to be codependent, um, learning where I stop and others begin, knowing my boundaries and things like that, learning boundaries, and at the same time wanting to be connected to everyone. And it's just really hard to just find that balance, how to be connected without being codependent. So I have all of these parts inside, like they're just bubbling, and just I just hear so many voices of them.
Let me pause for just a minute, Sarah, just to invite everybody along with us here. As we hear Sarah speak of what she calls a codependent part, And I don't care if in IFS we go beneath the labels, right? Because often the labels kind of imply some sense of something's wrong or something should change. We see the innocence and beauty of the part. Because you hear her speak of that, and you find in your system a voice, a part that really loves connection. It really, really loves connection, being connected with others, and it wants more of that. You find a part that just loves that connection. If we all can find that, and wants more connection, especially sometimes it gets real tastes of like a real intimacy of connectedness and not aloneness, and it wants more of that. Can you find that voice inside of you, that part? And can you adore it? Can you see the innocence of it? Oh, it's such sweetness, what it wants. And then might you have another part? I mean, as Sarah speaks of a balance, another part that's like, oh, wait a minute, we don't want to go too far in that direction, or maybe it has some ideas of what the right balance is. Or maybe it's even critical of that part. Like, I shouldn't want that. I shouldn't want this connection. I shouldn't want it like that. This part shouldn't want it. Like, can you find that dynamic of kind of those two voices in your system? And then, just like we did in our little guided dive at the beginning, can you be aware of both of them? Because usually our system goes back and forth. Oh, I want more connection. No, I shouldn't want that connection. I want more. No, I shouldn't. Can we back up and be aware of these voices? Like Sarah says, there's all this bubbling, all these voices inside of her system, all these parts. Can we be aware of those two in us as Sarah continues and shares about and guides us through her system? Tell us more, Sarah.
Well, there's a part that sees like I have to choose a side, that I can't have it both ways. You can be one with everything and at the same time have boundaries.
So as we hear Sarah describe this, the voice of this part, do we just or notice what happens in your system? Is there just an adoring this voice in her, this part that's like, it can't do both of these. It can't do them both. Just are we accepting that? And notice if you have a part coming up that's kind of problem solving. It's like, no, there is a way, or you should do it this way. And just can we appreciate that part, that this helper part inside of us? What's it like inside Sarah? What's it like with these voices? You said lots of bubbling. What's it like with all of that? Is it able to be welcoming all of that, or does it get a little overwhelming and blending? What's it like right now?
It's like building a wall, like putting up bricks, and one is building, one is setting up boundaries, putting bricks to separate. Another is just ripping them apart. No, you can't put this here. No, no, we're all one. And it's like this. Yeah, one puts a brick and another tears off the brick, and yeah.
Mhm. So when we hear Sarah say we're all one, can we find a flavor of self, a flavor of her beingness where that is true? Can we find that? We're all one. This that is one that is inseparable. Like when we spoke of what's it like if we didn't have these lines between us. This that is shared, this shared self, this shared beingness. And again, what's that like? Can we find that there's an okayness there in this beingness, this self that can't be enhanced or diminished, it just is. And then as Sarah speaks of the one that's putting up the bricks, that is separating. In IFS, sometimes we call these protectors that are just protecting boundaries, carefulness. What's that in your system? The one that protects and separates. And can we see how in IFS terms, there are no bad parts. Every part is here to serve us. Can we love those parts? Can we even love the parts that are putting up boundaries, that are separating it, that are just saying no? Can we love the no in our systems? What's it like for you, Sarah, as you have this play happening? Can it all be welcomed, or is it what's that like?
I'm getting an image of a flower and seeing others as petals of a flower. So we're all part of one big flower. Um, and every flower has its own boundaries, but then there's a small part that connects it to that connects every petal has its boundaries, but then it has a small part that connects it to the whole. And you know that part is like a little door that's open between the petal and the rest of the flower. Yeah, so there's this inner this wisdom part, you know, this wise part that's trying to make these two parts see that you can have boundaries like a petal, but also have a door like a flower.
What's it like to taste both? Just for all of us, what's it like to taste both? This this connectedness, this peace, this self that is perhaps has a you can identify a flavor of oneness or connectedness in that this that doesn't have separation, that doesn't have resistance, a self. What's it like to be both? To have both of these here or be both. And then we have these exquisite parts that are like, no, I want some more coffee. Or, gosh, we haven't heard from Goldie yet. It's like, gosh, our friend Goldie, I can't wait to hear from her. Like, what's it like to have both of these, to be both, like this flower of this connectedness? And I get how you said in the parts of the flower. What's it like? I guess that would be my, I won't put you on the spot anymore, Sarah, but like, what's it like to explore both of those at the same time, which is what we did in our little guided thing when we talked about the hot tub and the parts or the guest house being both self and parts. What's it like? Sometimes I call it simultaneous awareness, having this both and both here. What's that like in you, Sarah?
Oh, there's a yeah, it's a sense of relief, like sense of relief that there's no there's no friction between these two parts because both of them can exist at the same time.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want to share before we pop over to our friend Goalie or see if there's something bubbling before we do that in anybody? Anything else that's bubbling for you, Sarah?
Oh, thank you, Sid. It's just seeing how it's beautiful to have all of them together as part of the flower. Um, like shutting down a part would be like ripping off a petal of a flower, and the most beautiful flowers have a lot of petals, and just keeping all of these petals close together. Yeah, yeah, I'm just getting this image of it. Yeah. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. That last line of Sarah's, shutting down a part would be like pulling off a petal of the flower. What's that like in our system? That's where Dick Schwartz goes with this IFS when he says there's no bad parts. When because what happens is we just the time we fall in love with all the expressions in us of our parts. We see their goodness and we see they're intrinsically part of us. And what's this like for you when you hear Sarah say that? Shutting down a part would be like pulling off a petal of a flower. Can you find that? Can you find that in your system? This is part of what we're just playing with. It's a tipping point that opens this sense of welcoming all. First, there's welcoming all of our parts, and then it becomes even more intimate with our parts, and it becomes more and more a love affair. And then we get glimpses sometimes of what Sarah's speaking of. Let me just open it up. Anything bubbling on this? Any especially any no's. Like I don't know about that, or I'm having difficulty, or this is anything coming, any bubbling. Hey, Janet, do you have any? Do you have anything to show us? I've noticed, for some of those of you who don't know, Janet is our resident artist, and she teaches IFS classes on parts. And here we go.
So this is what came up, the like self and the parts and just the connectedness and the, what's going on. And there's a couple that are, I'm imagining kind of chumming up because there's a part of me that doesn't really see me, but sees self qualities in others or, those qualities like anywhere but with me. So I'm inviting that part. Oh, can other parts do know me? Can you guys like help them? So, but right now I'm just feeling a lot of it's like me and them and just like, oh, and you guys like, yeah, we're all here and like, hmm.
Mm. What does that feel like for all of us? We're all here, as she described it. Can you feel I'm telling you, there's such a yumminess as Janet was speaking of all of us. It's all here in this. What's that like? Kind of what David was saying in his other one, climbing the mountain, being tied together and supporting each other. Then Janet's way of describing this connectedness. Mm. And then what was it like? And we saw in Janet's, she had her parts. They had colors, right? They were different colors. Her parts were different colors and different shapes. Isn't it interesting how each of us know our parts in different ways? Like, how do you see them, or do you see your parts for all of us? Or is it more hearing them, or is it more feeling them? These are risings in us. Other day, Goli was speaking them as kind of they're like, I think Goli was doing this ripples in the ocean, or we were all talking about that in the group. Uh, Janet, anything else you'd like to share with what's here now?
No, just welcome.
Oh, thank you. Anything else bubbling before we go to next? Anything bubbling? How are we doing? How's everybody? V, yay! Hey.
Hello, everyone. I can relate to Sarah's parts and what Janet was talking about. Um, just recently, there was a part that was resisting to even wish a happy birthday to someone. Uh, and then there was a part, she's part of me. It was painful. The resistance was painful, and I tried to welcome it. And it was needing more of a protection, safety, the boundary part. Um, the There was a courageous part. Wish her the happy birthday and got the heart back and thank you thing back. Even if it didn't happen, I would have been okay. I'm just seeing a bridge, the self, the just the visual part of the bridge was coming up for me, for that connection, and I just feel grateful for that bridge.
And tell me about the bridge again. Tell us about the bridge again?
I'm just, my parts were coming up, there was a bridge. It's almost, I don't know if the self or the self-like part building a bridge to have that connection with that person, because that person is very important to me.
Nice.
Um,
Mm.
but when their parts get activated and my parts get scared, my codependent parts get scared. And I think this connection part, the bridge part, was
The
helpful.
bridge. Let me ask everybody about this. As we hear V share this, and let's say we are perhaps climbing the mountain together with David. We're all climbing together. And when you hear V share, what happens inside of you? What parts got evoked in V sharing in you? Were there parts, oh, I can relate to that, or that's different, or maybe something should be different? What parts came in you climbing the mountain together? And what was it like? Could you feel this connectedness this connectedness, perhaps that yummy that Janet was describing of being together, or the rope, or connectedness with what V was sharing? Was there a welcoming of her parts? Did that come, or what was it like inside of your system? And then when she speaks of this tension inside of her, that this part that's like wanting to connect and wish happy birthday, wanting to connect with this other. And then there was protective system, something wanted safety, wanted boundaries of protection. As you hear that and feel that in V, can that be welcomed? Can both sides of this polarity, all both those parts be welcomed? The one that wants to be able to connect and wish happy birthday and play and be with people. And then also the protectiveness. Hey, I'm not sure it's safe. I'm not sure this is safe. And can we see the innocence in both of those expressions in V? Is one better than the other? Or do we welcome them both? Almost like adoring those both in V. This is a big deal because then we take this to our own system, and the parts that arise, ones that want to play, wish happy birthday, be with people. And then the parts that are like, hey, no, it's not necessarily safe. I need to put my boundaries, do this. Can we see the innocence of those in our own system? Can we truly welcome these parts as they arise? And can they be like Sarah's flower? Like if we were just to push away one of those parts, saying, hey, I really like the one that wants to connect, the one that says, maybe not. Is that a petal that we just kind of like want to push away and not accept? What's it like? What's it like to be you for all of? What's it like to be you right now? What's it like? What's it like inside? What are the parts? What's this all like? B, you have something else you'd like to add to this for us? It's such a beautiful polarity that you shared, and it's for me. I think we all can find our version of it.
I'm just feeling this resiliency and courage to have taken, hold both of those polarities in myself and the courage to do that. So I'm grateful for that I myself was able to do that. With one, not one or the other.
Nice. How do we make sense of what V's describing? That, wow, there's something in her that's just welcoming both of these, not one or the other. Because notice parts. Parts are often going to choose and prefer. But then the sense of just welcoming both, not one or the other. Can you find this in you that just effortlessly does that? Like, notice, like, are you aware? Is there awareness of what V was sharing? This awareness, it's just here. This awareness. Similarly, is there's just something in you that just welcomes, that is just aware of and welcomes the parts, welcomes the expressions just the way they are. Any final words, V?
I feel complete. Thank you, Sid. Thank you,
Oh,
everyone.
wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I know this is a bigger group because usually there's a more sense of intimacy, and it's a little bit can be a little bit more challenging with the bigger group today. Anything bubbling with what V just shared or what Sarah shared that you'd like to share right now? Anything bubbling at all?
I can share.
Hi, wonderful.
Um, what comes to mind earlier talking about the emptiness, what I was experiencing was vastness. And it was dark, but a safe and cozy. So I guess the way I relate to it is I tend to feel that when night falls, right? There's that sort of insulated. Some people don't like that, like it's the opposite, but for me, it's this insulated coziness where the focus is on me, where I feel more presence. And so in the experience, I felt this weightedness, centeredness, in this vast darkness. And when the parts were invited to come out and you brought up what mask might they be wearing, there is a part that had a, I would say, pretty epic trauma, emotion, energy completion through a somatic experiencing and energy healing last week. That was one that it, and also a protective part, felt really strongly I should attend today. um, and I saw it as this entity of golden light, and the mask it had on was the emotions that it had been able to shed and like took its, or the mask just popped off. So I thought that was quite beautiful in seeing them in a different way, that kind of like layers of an onion, right? That's been slowly being peeled away, that it felt like that was the last layer.
I have one quick question as we're going in, as you're taking us on this journey, Kai. There, after this healing that occurred, there was a sense of, oh, I think I should come today. It would be good to come to this group today. Is there
Mhm.
anything that your system, and maybe you can all join me in this, anything that your system needs, that your parts need, a sense of safety, reassurance, care, connectedness, because it sounds like it was kind of a dramatic occurrence happened for you with this opening, with this removal of the mask. Is there anything that's needed? And just before you answer that, maybe just for all of us, as we're giving our attention to Kai as far as what she needs, but also like what do your parts need? What is needed here? Because there's such an opportunity having all of us here with you, for all of us. We're all here with you. Whatever is needed, if it's like connectedness, care, safety, presence, understanding, being seen, may your parts get what they need here. If you can feel the yearning of your parts for what they need, we are abundance here for you. We all are here for you. Hi, is there a sense of, and maybe it's just to be able to share what was happening, to connect around this, to normalize what occurred. What's, what comes up for you, Kai?
Um, I mean, what drew me to attend, or try try to attend today, because it's early for me and on the West Coast, was I think in the wording of the invite party that this part is part of my aliveness, and that's what I've noticed this week since having that, I'll say like a release healing session, that I am more connected and more access to self. Um, and so coming here for it, I feel like it is part of a celebration, but maybe if it came right down to it, it is being acknowledged and being seen. Um, a protective part did come up, but it is not sort of hovering. It's sort of in the space of like, oh, but we needed more sleep, or we're tired. But there was a sense of like, yeah, okay, fine, we need this, or the part needs this, and it was kind of like, all right, fine,
Perfect. So
which I thought was
how about
funny.
this? How about what Kai's sharing? Like, I wish we all had this. Like, she described this epic, traumatic part in what occurred in this release, this opening, this healing that revealed it was like a mask coming off that opened her up to this aliveness. And it's like, okay, it's like, what's next? Let's go to work. Or, it's like, wait a minute, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. First, can we all like find that in our, I wish we celebrated that. I love that you came here for celebration, that we use the word celebration. It's a party. And Like the idea is to celebrate everything that's here, all of our parts, every single thing that's arising. And it's just like Sarah speaking of her parts. And then we have Kai where it gets to be, wow, wow, your aliveness. Welcome. We love that. We love this release. We love this openness that's occurring. And maybe just for all of us now, as we hear what Kai was looking for, to be seen, to share, to celebrate. And I perhaps think to inspire us, like she's our special guest today coming in and inspiring us. But as we hear this, what does it evoke in your system? Like if we are hearing someone who was being sad, who was sad, it might evoke love and care. But here with Kai, with the sense of celebration, what does it evoke? How are we with her from self? What quality of self is evoked in you? Is it a sense of like yay? Is it like Janet's yay? Or is it what is evoked in you as you hear this from Kai? Maybe let me hear a couple people. What's evoked as we hear this? Quality of self. What happens? Is it connection? Is it celebration? Carol, what do you find? What is she evoking in you? I know it's a lot of people today. It's a little different. It's a little harder just to speak up. Give me a word. How about just one word? I'm just gonna call. Goalie, give me a word. What's a word?
Uh, to me, all the qualities that you use, like your emptiness or Raymond's self or Kai's vastness or Sarah's oneness, I don't know, they are all the qualities of the self to me. And it's just right here, you said right here, we can experience it right now, right here, all together. Like the sound that is coming from my mouth in this vastness or in this emptiness, which is self, we all can hear it with the tool of hearing, with the tool of our ears, but we all are connected to that thing, that vastness that allows it to happen and allows the listening to happen. So we just can experience that we are all connected in this. We all are hearing the same voice. The only thing that separates us is that maybe judgment thought that could be just not there, and there is just oneness. And we, to me, because we all are connected to this vastness, and that emptiness or vastness allows everything to be. It doesn't choose. It doesn't say Sid can be here, but like Goli cannot be here. We all have the same connection to that self. And because we all are that self, we can be the same for our parts. We can allow them to be without judging them, without choosing them or liking them, not liking the other one. They are all like the same that Sarah said, all the petals of the rose. The rose doesn't choose which petal it wants or not. They are all the same. They are all allowed to be anything. That's all the oneness that we are.
That like for us to hear as Kai speaks of this vastness and what's happening to her, and it's just, and then it evokes us from Goli in describing this vastness, this oneness. What's that like to hear that? I want to come back to Kai in just a moment here because and what's that like in us? What's as you hear Goli describe this, what's most like that in your system? What's most like that? This vastness, this oneness, this including everything, all the petals. And then to also include the parts that come up. What parts come up? Like, whoa, that was too much. I can't really follow that. What parts came up? Or I can understand it. I'm not sure I understood everything she said. Thank you. And then back to Kai's, the sense of celebration, sense of celebration. What's it like as we hear one of our friends that's climbing the mountain with us is having this aha in the midst of this, like Goli's clarity, her aha, Kai's having an aha, the onion peeling, the mask is being removed. What's it like as we see that in a friend? And can you see it? Can you see as Goli's sharing this, can you see the radiant presence that she's speaking from and speaking of? As Kai is sharing this, as we look at Kai, as we feel Kai, and we feel that celebration, can we feel this aliveness that's open for her? Can we feel this aliveness in Kai? And what's most like that in you? If we're not really separate, if we're all this shared self, this aliveness that's open, this is how we get to become more and more intimate with the beingness, with our nature. What's that like in you? Any other responses? Anything else bubbling in response to what Kai shared? And I know Raymond was trying to say something earlier. Is anything there, Raymond, in response? Anything here that's in response to this?
Yeah, I'm going to nip off in just a moment as well, Sid. So that's very timely. That whole language of words, and and we've all got different interpretations of that. But I like two words that have been said today, and I have a little spin on them. One is nothingness, and it's just no thingness. It's not. It's full of essence. It's just not full of things. But what I mean by that is, of course, things appear inside it. So we're not denying the reality of the appearance of formation, information. So that was one word. And the other word that I like, I love this word in my own practice, which is nowhere, which is also, without changing anything, just now here. So where is nowhere is here.
I can see how this is all playing in her system, this celebration in what she shared. And then the good news is we haven't even heard from Elizabeth and Nora yet as far as what's happening in them. And so we've got doors of surprise and loveliness coming. But Kai, what's this? How's it going there? What are you finding? What's this playing in your part as we just kind of open this up and you're being seen and you're being seen? What's that like?
Mhm. I just, well, others were sharing the imagery of similar to, I don't know if you're familiar with the term like mycelium network. So the fine threads of fungi that exist underground that connect all the living things. They help trees to communicate to one another. They help, and then to even pass nutrients. I feel like us as human beings, as each one of us have an awareness, and as we speak it, it's like the light within us of the self brightens. And so I see this network of like sparkling lights and being brighter, and the little network, the webs between us connect and lightens up too. And new web, the new little threads are growing. So that's what I sensed.
Let me just check with everybody. As you hear Kai describe that, this web, this network amongst us, amongst our parts, amongst us, you relate to that? What's your version of that? Is it like, yes, that's it? This, I can't say the word mycelium, mice network. I can't say it, but that. It's like, is it that for you or is it different? Is it different? Is it different? And then the last thing, I didn't want to miss this. Kai started off with something really interesting for me when she was describing the emptiness. It's like emptiness can be a really scary word for some of us. And for some of our parts, it can be really scary. And then just where Kai's system went with that, and she described it as a vastness. She described it as dark, but in the darkness, it was safe. There was safety and coziness in the darkness, in the vastness of the emptiness. Can we touch that? What's that like to hear that description of emptiness, of this vastness, cozy, safe? What's most like that in each of our systems? And I just wanted to highlight that a little bit because some of our parts can have real difficulty. In my system, some of my parts have real difficulty with this emptiness. And any final words before we hear from Elizabeth and Nora? Anything else you'd like to share, Kai, as you're being this celebration, this sharing this opening that's happened for you?
No, it just feels very present and calming. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for where you took us as a group today. And so before we go, I'm just gonna say I haven't heard word from Elizabeth today. Before we go to Elizabeth, uh, anything bubbling that's wanting to be shared in response to Raymond and Kai's sharing? Goalie!
Yes, it's just something came when Kai was sharing about that darkness at night, and that she said it's very peaceful. Yeah, I just wanted to say what was present for me. Like when we sleep, what is happening when we are sleeping? And everyone loves to sleep, loves the deep sleep. It's like this body shuts down, like our connection to the world of material just goes away for a while, and I remain, that self remains, and that is a total peace. When we go to the deep sleep, that is a total peace. That's what we actually are, that emptiness are, that. And you said it's even darkness. That's true. It's just nothing there. It's only myself and the peace which is yourself. It just came to me. I wanted to share. Thank you.
What's that like to hear when Goalie says, and I remain? And I remain. What remains in you? What's that I that remains? What's she pointing to in you? The I that remains. And what would be your flavor of it? What would be your word for it? Is it presence? Is it awareness? Silence, love, and I remain. You guys might not know my friend Elizabeth. She's been doing this for a long time, and we don't want to miss a word she says. So I'm Elizabeth, what you got to share with us today?
Yeah, thank you, Sid. Thank you, everyone. Freaking love this group. And there's nothing like this group that I've found. So I use them when we start out and you're like, what's here that's most like self or beingness? I use a mantra. I have a mantra practice to help me access self when I need help connecting. And it's just a mantra of like, everything is welcome, everything is welcome, something like that, which puts me in self and presence when I say it. It connects me with self and presence and puts me in self and presence and turns up the volume on connection with self and presence. Today, when I got on the call, I was, again, in that place where not really feeling self energy or self and presence, which is fine. I have the mantra practice. And I noticed there was like a worried monitor part saying, oh, it's not happening. We're not getting the connection. Like, we're not getting that radio frequency coming in. And it was just kind of, and so I was saying, everything is welcome. This is welcome to the worried monitor part that's saying, oh, we're saying our mantra to connect with self and presence, but we're not really feeling it. Like, okay, that worried monitor is welcome too. And then I just
Wait,
was
wait,
like,
Elizabeth, let me pause for just a minute because this is
okay,
this is just what you said. Wait a minute, I have a monitor that's here saying it's not happening. We're not picking up the radio frequency. We're not having the connection. Can we all just pause there for a moment and we relate to that? It's not happening. Part that's like we're not finding the connection, we're not finding the frequency, we're not perhaps in Elizabeth's mantra, everything is welcome, that space isn't here right now. What about when we're there? What about when that's occurring? What's your version? Is that could it be okay when that's okay? This is the real advanced stuff. When that's not here, could the welcoming even include that? Please continue, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so then it was like, okay, whatever here is welcome, that is welcome, you're welcome, and saying hello to the worried monitor, you are welcome here. Looking forward to getting to know you better. And then, like, this thought kind of dropped in because we always talk about a party in this group, which I love bringing in that energy. I don't know which one of the C's it is, but it should be one of the C's. Um, and I said, well, then, you know what? What if we just have a patience party? Because one of the most important aspects of self or self and presence for me is patience. So, um, parts I noticed don't have patience, but self and presence definitely has patience. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just have like a patience party. Um, it's just going to be a patience party then, maybe the whole day, maybe just the morning, maybe just in this moment, but like we can't force it, right? We can't force, usually the mantra works great. Today it's not feeling it. That's okay. So it's a patience party and call in that really powerful aspect of self and presence, patience, which can mean the difference between suffering. Like there's no suffering if I'm having a patience. Okay, we're having a patience party. We're not feeling, and then like there's no suffering there. And there's more just beingness because we're just gonna have a patience party. And maybe you have a refinement or a just what do you call it when you give me a discernment? Maybe you have a discernment for me, Sid.
Oh, I felt like I received the discernment from you because when I was like, hey, let's pause and invite everybody to find okayness with it. I like your discernment. I felt like what was so much sweeter, where this discernment of, well, parts, they don't necessarily always have patience, but self and presence always does have patience. So in the midst of this, instead of even going to playing with the okayness, I love where your system went to a patience party. Sarah, you have something?
Um, I do have to go. Um, thank
Give us
you.
some final
Thank you
words.
for today.
Give us some final words. Give us something.
I love the party part that Elizabeth mentioned and Kai mentioned earlier, and there's a part of me that just really wants to party. So, yeah, like yeah, I guess maybe sometime we can have an actual party with a lot of music and dance and I really hope we can do that like an actual party.
Yes. Yes. Oh.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming
Thank you
to
for
the party,
today.
Sarah. Thanks for being the party, Sarah.
Bye.
Oh. Elizabeth, what's it like to be this patient party, to shift from the monitor that there's something missing, to shift from that to this place of this patient's party, this okayness as a patience? What's that like?
It's it feels like okayness. Like okayness.
You have parts. I'm wondering for all of us as we hear Elizabeth say this. Well, but we can go to patience. Self always has patience and presence. It's unlimited patience here itself. Do you have parts that are like, what fun is that? I don't like the parts that resist that. That's not a party. I can call it a patient party, patience party. Do you have parts that resist this, the sense of patience? Do we have like a tension that arises inside our system with the self that's just this patience, this unlimited patience party that is this okayness as the patience, as what is, and parts that are like, no way, this is not satisfying. What do you find? Do you have any tension like that, Elizabeth? What's there?
Um, Usually I turn to the resource of patience. It calms things down. Like, oh, okay, we're gonna go into patience mode. It's a little bit like, okay, we have a plan. Um, it's okay, we have a plan. And because I think parts underlying are really afraid, like there's always a shadow fear of like whatever it's going to be forever, or it's never going to happen, or it's going to be forever when. So it just really calms things down, like, oh, patience, that thing. Oh, it feels very grounding. It's just calming, helpful, feels that thing. I only learned about it a few years ago, called patience.
Wow. This is interesting. Can you see like what I was inviting Elizabeth, and instead we heard her parts like have this different relationship with patience that they kind of you could hear that the parts find, wow, this can give us something. We can find peace here and okayness. Isn't that interesting? Like in my system, it's not like that. I'm wondering what it's like in your system. There are a lot of resistance comes up in mine to this patience party. Patience is the answer. Is your system more like mine or more like Elizabeth's that just kind of sees the wisdom in it and not resist it? Any final words, Elizabeth, with all of this?
Just thank you for mentoring us about that, bringing the spirit of that spirit of it's a party is just so priceless. I just can't hear that enough. So thank you. It just makes all the difference in the world. It's just totally radical reconceptualization, makes all the difference between suffering and not. So thank you.
Gosh, you used that language last time, and it was so helpful for me the way you called it out that way. And so, how's that resonate for everybody? We say party, and we're also not saying needing to be happy or joyful or just celebratory. Like we're this party that is the idea of celebrating everything, going beyond the welcoming to the idea of really the petals of our flower, like all of them are beloved, and it's a party. Wow, the beauty of this, even especially if someone just speaks of sadness in their life and their parts, it's like that. We're having a party. We're just celebrating all of those petals, all of it. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Woo, that was a lot. Just for everybody, maybe if there's a little shaking that wants to go as far before we go to Nora here, we just kind of like as we're here, no, just play with David's words here and now. We're here and now. Nothing needs to be done, nothing needs to be understood. We're just playing here. And before we go to Nora, I'm just wondering real quick, Janet, is there any more art that wants to be shown real quick?
I added like these lines coming out. Oh, funny. Um, from self to the parts, and that the parts desire some qualities of self. So anyway.
Thank you.
Anyway, so there's words. They're
Wow.
like one wants calm, one wants compassion, joy, connection. So just added to it.
Thank you. So for us, we see the colors of Janet's parts, and we also see the color of self. Like I get like the sense of this yellow in the background. Is there a color of self in your system? Does it have a color? Your parts have color, and then she has these little lines, what the parts are longing for. What are your parts longing for from self? Whew. Okay, real quick, just a minute. We only got 9 minutes left. Anything that needs to be said real quick before we go to Nora? Yeah, David.
This sometimes happens in other circumstances, but in this meeting, well, this one in particular, every time I have a sense of equanimity, something else arises that I realize I had been preferencing. And seeing that is just like tremendously liberating. And party, it's like, let's party down with that. So thank
Thank
you all.
you.
That's really good. We're having a good time today.
Having a good time. All right, Nora, can you guys join me in like curiosity? It's like our friend Nora's been here, and it's like, what's happening in her? What are her parts that have been evoked today? And what do they arise in? What's her sense of self? What's going on, Nora? How is it being you today?
It brings me back to a time when I was part of a group and I used to pray that the time would be up and that I wouldn't get a chance to speak. But I'm glad to say that's not the case today. I've got over that part of me, I think. And I really, really enjoyed everybody's share. I loved the artwork. I loved what everybody had to say. And it's brilliant. It's great to be here. I had a whole lot of different things that I was going to say actually, but I can't remember them now. But the parts that I was aware of was gratitude to be here, and the doorbell rang then, and all the gratitude went away. Hope this person doesn't want me to speak for long at the door, and thankfully he let me go. I whispered. I think he thought I was afraid of him. I was whispering, I mean. So he explained who he was. But anyway, that's my story. Gratitude is the main part that I'm aware of right now.
Nice. And what does it all arise in, Nora? What's the flavor of beingness or self or this ocean, this connectedness? What's the flavor? What does it feel like? What do you find?
Connection with first of all, I loved the petals. I loved the idea of the flower and the petals. And the petals could be my parts, but also then to look at each of us on the screen and we could each be petals and part of the whole. Yeah.
And if
So
as part of the whole, and then what's the feel of that? That's where David was taking it like with words like here and now and Goalie with her description and where Kai was taking us. When you describe like we're all petals of the flower, all petals of the flower, when you see that, what's the feel of the flavor of the flower? Is it warmth? Is it love? Is it presence? Is it aliveness that Kai was speaking of? What's the flavor of it that's felt and known in you?
the essence of the flower is connectedness, and each of us are the petals, and each of us are the essence. So as well as being a petal, we're the connection. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Oh, that you're pointing us there. I love where you're pointing, and just for all of us as we feel into what Nora's describing, this connectedness, because this is what some of these spiritual people talk about when we recognize that wow, we're all connected, we're all the ocean, we're all an aspect of the flower. This is when they use words like I think Goli used this word oneness day. And it's like some of them describe it. They use the word Satchitananda, the sense of bliss. It's like sometimes we touch when we move into this place of connectedness and oneness, sometimes it's experienced as love, this connectedness as love, as warmth, as union, as bliss, and or sometimes just a stillness or peace or aliveness. And I was wondering if there was a word for that for you, Nora, like when you experience this connectedness, if there was one word that would describe it also.
Bliss is probably the closest.
And just for all of us, as we hear Nora say bliss, what's most like bliss that's here now for us? What's most like bliss? You might have a different word for it. Most like bliss.
Peace.
Peace. Yeah, any other popcorn words that want to come up for this connectedness, how it's experienced? Yeah. Anybody else have a word they'd like to share to describe this connectedness?
I would say love.
Peace.
Is that love?
I would say it's love, yeah.
Okay,
Just,
let's pause for
I mean,
no, go on.
yeah. Sorry, no, that's it.
Love. So what as we hear goalie say love, can we find that? What's our version of that? Most like love when we know this connectedness, when we're all petals of the flower, as Nora was describing. There's a love. What's most like love that's here? Because we're interested in you. We're interested in how it plays in you. That's where it's real, how it plays in each of us, our version of it, our expression of this. And then as we heard David, for David, it's peace. His word was peace for this connectedness. What's like most like peace that's here in you, as you? Any other words? Let's go around here from everybody real quick. Kai, what's your word?
Stillness. Stillness.
Oh, V, stillness. Beautiful. This will be our finale today. Stillness. What's most like stillness for all of us? Or you could just feel it in V. If you're like, I'm not sure I know stillness here right now. We got V. She's showing us the way. Just feel that. Stillness. Thank you, V. Kai, what's your word?
Oh, sorry. Um, I think the word that came up for me, it's kind of playing around, was like interconnected presence.
Interconnected presence. As you hear that, I heard saw Nora nodding a little bit with that one. It's like, what's your nodding big time with that one? What's your version of that? What is that? Where does that take you? Interconnected presence. What's your experience of that? What's most like that for you? Thank you, Kai. Janet, what you got?
Centered.
Centered. Can you hear the tone of Janet's voice when she described that centered? What is it? How does that resonate in you as you either hear the tone or feel the centeredness in her, or you just hear the word centeredness, centered? What does that bring you? What does that evoke here in you? And Elizabeth, for you,
It's the phrase, everything here is welcome.
so as you feel Elizabeth share those words, where does it take you? Or as you hear her words, everything here is welcomed. What's that like? What's most like that in you? And as we were getting our final words from Nora here, I'm going to bring it back to you, Nora, to see if there are any. We have 1 minute left. If there's any final thing you'd like to share, Nora, with this
Just
celebration.
I'm getting darker by the minute because of it's evening time here. So maybe darkness, but somebody mentioned darkness earlier on. I didn't like that idea, but now I can see it, that in the darkness, the light is more obvious, I suppose.
How about that as our last word? Darkness, in the yumminess of darkness, in Kai's description of darkness. Thank you all so much for this party, this celebration, this exploration. And just the last point, can each of us receive how we co-created this, how you sharing what was going on in you and just sharing what was there, that that's what accentuated the celebration because it allowed us all to find that and join you and find that in ourselves and how we co-created this through your gifts. Thank you all so much. I hope to see you again soon.
Thanks for the party.
Yay.